Hello, everyone. Happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
That's why
Very
I'm in my car. In my car. Everybody's off today, and every place is packed. So yes, happy MLK Junior Day. We don't have to get into the playoffs much yesterday. We didn't even talk about this off camera.
mm,
But that was pretty cool seeing Trevor Lawrence come back and beat the Chargers. And games yesterday. You're a Giants fan, right?
Cowboys.
Oh, wait, that's right. So they're going to lose tonight. Okay, they're going to lose tonight. You
Please
know
don't.
they are. They're just gonna. I mean, Dak stinks. He's gonna throw 3 picks.
Why?
Brady's
Why did you
Brady.
think though? Why? He shouldn't.
He sees things that nobody sees. He'll he'll overstride in his motion. He'll sail the ball at times. You know there's miscommunication between him and his receivers sometimes. Like he'll throw at least 2 picks tonight that will go right to the defender. It won't be tipped. It won't be anything, it'd just be right to the defender, probably be in the first half and put them down a little bit. Then they'll come back, and then Brady will win it in the fourth quarter. Then maybe we could fire Mike McCarthy. Um,
Do you not like Mike McCarthy?
Not really. I don't think he's a great game manager. I don't think he's a great clock management guy. I don't think he's done a great job with Dak. I mean, listen, he's an offensive coach. I don't like Kellen Moore either. I don't think Kellen Moore's a good play caller. And he's being
Interesting.
interviewed for he's being interviewed for head coaching jobs and stuff. I like Dan Quinn. I like the defense. Um, but no, I'm just not happy with the offense. And they got a lot of weapons. I mean, more than the Bucks. Bucks have nobody. Their running game is non-existent. Mike Evans is, you know,
He's
every
aging a
four,
little bit. He's
he
aging a
is,
little.
and he drops a lot of passes every fourth game. He blows up. Chris Godwin's coming off that ACL. He's still not the same player. They don't have weapons. The offensive line is scattered and injured. There's no way Tampa Bay should win this football game, but they're at home. They got the GOAT, and we got Dak. But the Giants, Danny Jones, it was great yesterday. The
Great.
Dolphins gave the Bills
That was a
hell.
great
That
game.
was a really good game. Um, but we're here to talk more about the guys that are making more money apparently than these NFL guys. Dak's making 32 million, probably more than that, right? It's like 40 million. I think it's
Yeah.
40 million. Uh, Jayden Rashada's making 13 million apparently, which is not true, but that NIL deal we were talking off camera fell through, and it's just interesting. The things I hear, they may not be true. I don't know. I mean, I talk to people I've known for a very long time about these situations. They continually tell me over and over again that the dollar amounts are greatly exaggerated, super inflated. I believe that to the core of my being because these are guys that I've known for 30 years, who are in college football. Um, that's not saying that this wasn't a multi-million-dollar deal that fell through.
Oh,
But from
yeah.
what I heard, Rashada had a deal in place. I believe the ask was raised before he enrolled. This is how leverage works. You know this. I mean, you've been an agent, so you got the deal. The NIL deal isn't signed; it's on paper. We're going to give you X amount. This is from the Gators Collective. This isn't from the school, so to speak. But everybody's involved. I mean, the Gators Collective. If you got 5 quarterbacks on your roster, the Gators Collective is not going to go out and pay millions of dollars for a sixth. So coordination is done between the coaching staff and the Gators Collective as to what position is important, what kids would. So again, that's a violation in and of itself, but we know that occurs. Um, the NIL deal is put in front of him. He doesn't sign it until he signs his letter of intent. Signs his letter of intent, and then all of a sudden, the NIL deal. I'm enrolling in early January. Mm, I don't really like this. I don't like this. I want more. And that's happened twice in the last 3 weeks with high level recruits. So then you go back to the negotiation. Well, what do you want? I thought we agreed upon this. Blah blah blah. A lot of people think this is Florida, saying we signed you now. We're going to cut the money down. It's not. It's the other side saying we want more money. And then Florida walks away, and now Rashada, who knows? I don't know where he's going to end up. Could be Washington. It could be Arizona State. Could be someplace out there. But I don't think he's going to get the money that he was going to get at Florida that he turned around down. So I think his agent made a big calculated risk here, and Florida walked away.
my question on this, the quarterback thing is, so from an explanation standpoint, you have to, once you sign the letter of intent, then you can sign an NIL deal, right? Is that officially sign an NIL deal, right?
Yeah,
Everything's
you can't sign before. That's a violation. It's a glaring violation that even the NCAA would enforce.
right. So with the difficulty in it and having been an agent, right? You're making a deal to go to an organization. I'll just use an NFL side of it. This is I'm going to go to the New York Giants. I'm a player. I'm in negotiations. I'm going to go to the New York Giants. I'm signing, but I don't know what I'm going to get paid, right? And for a long or short, for the lay people out there, that's really an easy explanation. In this situation, I'm not saying whether it's good or bad. I think overall the NIL is going to really do a lot of as much good as it does for the individual players financially. It's going to do a lot of negative for the sport, right? So, um, but in the NFL, if I say my player's going to the Giants, in order for anything to happen, they have to come back with a contract that we both agree upon and both sign in order for it to be executed. What's difficult and what makes these things for people to understand very dicey is that I could sign my my letter of intent to go to Florida, but I won't officially have my NIL deal until after I sign to go to that school, which is what it's really a handshake. It's me and Mike Farrell shaking and saying, "This is the deal we're going to do." And it's almost like, we're the oil barons back in the old days, right? We sign and we shake on a deal, and then eventually that gets worked out. But what's tough is the calculated risk that the agent's taking here is he saying, I have a kid that's the top player, quote unquote, at the quarterback position. He's going to go to Florida. I sign my letter of intent. I don't get the money that I wanted, whatever that money is. And now I want to go back on the open market. The question then becomes is your open market higher or lower now because you're deemed to be, whether it's true or not, I'm not saying it's true or not, I'm just saying you're deemed to be maybe a headache, right? Doesn't mean you are a headache. I don't know anything about Jayden Rashada other than I've seen a lot of film on him, but I don't know. You know way more than I do.
All right.
So I'm just saying, as purely from like a business standpoint, does that marketplace go higher or lower because of the word gets now the agent's calculating that it's a higher marketplace, right? Otherwise he would say sign this deal. He's calculating that's going to be a higher marketplace for him if he gets out of the out of signing with Florida. I'm not so sure. I'm curious what you think about this because I'm not so sure because it's so messy and unintentionally could mar Jayden Rashada. I'm not saying he's not going to get another $1 million. I'm not saying that. Probably will. But he enters marred.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, and it hurts his NFL stock too because everybody pays attention to what you do out of high school. Now, again, if he's a great quarterback in college and he is, I'm trying to think of guys. Everybody's pretty much wart free in this NFL draft. Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis. Those guys. I'm trying to think of somebody whose sort of reputation was clouded a bit because of
Tyreek Hill, when he was coming out, was clouded.
who?
Tyreek Hill was clouded when he
Yeah,
came
I mean that was a domestic situation, but sure,
right.
yeah.
Mixon
So
was
this is
clouded. Mixon.
like, yeah, another domestic. So, but I'm talking like from a perception of being difficult, as you mentioned. Jayden Rashada, to me, I don't know him. Everybody I talk to says he's not difficult. He's a great kid. Now he's got a father. We all know about quarterback fathers. He's got an agent. We all know about agents. They could be difficult. They can cause issues. So this situation is now he was committed to Miami first. He flipped to Florida apparently for a bigger NIL deal. That's a red flag in the minds of NFL scouts. Is he in it for the right reasons? This is a money thing, blah, blah, blah. That's one. Now he backs off of his commitment and doesn't enroll at Florida. Again, NIL. That's red flag number 2. This kid's a headache. This is a problem. We don't even want to deal with this. He better be outstanding in his college career if he wants to have that first round label as an NFL player. Now, from the player standpoint, he may get hurt his first game. He may stink. He may be, transferred. He may be JT Daniels, right? Top 10 quarterback in the country, goes to USC, gets hurt, loses his job. Goes to Georgia, gets hurt, loses his job. Goes to West Virginia, stinks, loses his job. Now he's at wherever, Rice, or I don't even know where he's at. You could be that guy, and you want to cash in now. So that's the weight of things, is like, do I want to get life-changing money now, and maybe I'll be good, maybe I won't be good? Or do you want to, really go all in on being a non-difficult first-round guy? And you can balance it. I mean, Bryce Young's a great example of that. He went all in on being a great player, and he got NIL, but he got NIL for performance. This is the problem with NIL. Originally, it was put in place for performance. Ohio State just tried to convince C.J. Stroud to come back to school. He declared for the NFL draft today. The day was the last day of the deadline. And there was some talks of the collective at Ohio State saying, hey, listen, you should sign an insurance policy. So your money is guaranteed, and if you get hurt, and we'll pay you, X amount, like $2 million your last year, win-win. And you can come back, develop your skills, try to win a national championship, all that stuff. That's what NIL is supposed to be. Heisman candidate getting paid because of his name, image, and likeness. It's not for high school kids who have never thrown a college pass, who have never stepped on a college football field, who may suck, who may be problems, who may jump into the portal. And that's the mess we've been dealt with now, because this wasn't addressed. Had there been some sort of agreement amongst conferences prior to this ship sailing, and now it's sailed because antitrust lawsuits will come out. You can't deny somebody 1 year of NIL. I think what should have been done 10 years ago is, when NIL was being put together, a 1 year hold on NIL until you played 1 year of college football. Then you can gain money from your name, image, and likeness. That way you're not dealing with this garbage. You're not dealing with this bidding for players. You're not dealing. Let's be flat honest. Cormani McClain is the other example here, the 5-star defensive back from Lakeland, committed to Miami, had an NIL deal in place. From what I heard, he changed the parameters of that NIL deal and started wanting more and more stuff. Now he's visited Colorado. Will probably end up with Dion out there. What would be the case here is, these kids choose their school, they go play, then they can gain NIL riches after they've established
So like an
themselves.
escrow, right? Like an escrow account for the money that they're supposed to get until they play.
I
Something like
don't
that?
know. I don't think an escrow will work, because you're still talking about guaranteed money. You're still talking about the negotiation of high school kids. You're still talking about colleges. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, if you want to flat out come down to it, Miami tried to buy Cormani McClain. Colorado's trying to buy him now. Miami tried to buy Jayden Rashada. Florida's trying to buy him now.
Well,
It didn't work.
Miami bought, I don't know if you're familiar with outside of football NIL deals, but have you heard of the girl basketball players, the Cavender twins? There, they
No.
bought they bought these girls. So these girls are like the number one thing on like TikTok and Instagram, and like literally the they started out like dribbling, they're pretty girls and stuff. And they were good basketball players at like Fresno State, or I can't remember if it's Fresno or San Diego, one of those schools. And they were good. They're like averaging like 15, 20 a game. Well, Miami bought those girls, brought them over from where they were in California, literally gave them millions to come over and be the brand over University of Miami basketball. So the issue is like, now those girls were already, I would say, established, right? So
I don't mind that as much.
But what's interesting is the pockets buying to put their brand on these kids, right? So like Miami basically said with the Cavender twins, like I don't even think Miami girls basketball is anything special, but they probably said, hey man, like boom, put this on them. Maybe we get more people to come to the University of Miami, right? More other players, right? These girls are good basketball players, pretty girls. That's like a on social media, a big marketplace to draw players. It really is, right? Like they will want to be around that kind of
Right.
And Miami, Los Angeles, maybe Austin, Texas, they've become these social media hubs where influencers are. So it's natural that these colleges, which are right there, like, so you got USC, UCLA, you got Texas, you got Miami, all in those same markets that have become these hubs, right? So these collectives are all, these companies are all in these cities putting money into these collectives that are now trickling down to like these athletes. What I think is really interesting is like Quinn Ewers. I use this as an example, right? Quinn Ewers got the money. I don't know exactly what happened as far as financially, how much he got when he went to Ohio State because he left, but some money was exchanged, goes there.
Yep. Yep.
Obviously some money exchanged, come back to Texas, right? Which is a big, not just a big, obviously sports market, but Austin is now a big influencer market, right?
Right.
So he comes there, and the performance he had this year, I'll be kind. I'll say average.
Yep. It was
Okay,
average. Based on
average.
expectations, it was average.
Based on expectations. If he's a regular guy, yeah, they say,
First
all
year
right,
starter, he was okay,
it was
but
okay, right?
he's Quinn Ewers. So
So as he's going now, Quinn Ewers I think, is gonna get drafted no matter how well he does or doesn't, just because of the arm and everything. I think he'll get drafted. Whether he goes really, if he starts to perform really well, he'll go. Obviously, he could be number one guy. Doesn't, he's gonna get drafted. It's just like what you said about
no, he'll be first round. I mean, look at
yeah,
Will Levis. Will Levis stunk this year.
right.
His arm has him potentially the number one pick in the draft. And Quinn
Ukulele,
Ewers,
Ukulele will be a first rounder, even though.
yeah. I love how you say ukulele because you listen to that
Oh
throw
yeah,
god.
yeah.
It's you ukulele, and you're like ukulele. That guy is funny, throw god man. That is
No,
some
he's
funny
crazy,
stuff.
but he's funny.
But ukulele, doesn't have the same sort of special like that arm, man. It's the Matt Stafford, it's the John Elway. Will Levis has that arm. It's golden. It's magical. You think you can do stuff with it. Quinn Ewers has that arm. Same
Yep.
thing. So if he does average, people are going to fall in love with that arm. So he'll be fine. But yeah, I mean, went to one place, made money. Went to another place, made more money. But that's, I mean,
Like, how is that perceived in the marketplace? Because
so it's tough because that was the first year of NIL, right? And the state of Texas had not passed NIL legislation where you could make money as a high school athlete. So he matriculated early. He sped up his graduation a year so he could get out of there and go to Ohio State and make money. Had he stayed at high school, he would have just been playing high school football, which wasn't really a super challenge to him without making any money. So he graduated early, went up to Ohio State, got money. There wasn't a perception that Quinn Ewers was bought though. It wasn't. NIL was still in its infancy. He had NIL in place at Ohio State. There was a collective, of course, but that was in its infancy. Now we're in second full blown year of NIL with high school recruiting. And the difference between Quinn Ewers is back then it was like, I'm going to go because Ryan Day's a great coach. That offense fits me. They keep putting up big Heisman contender quarterback numbers, blah, blah, Justin Fields. This is different. This is a different feel. This is like definitely, negotiation. This is, I'm going to call your bluff. I want this much money. If you're not going to give me this much money, I'm going to walk away. And then from the school side of things, Rashada looks bad, but Billy Napier's getting skewered, at Florida. Because how can you let this, some people have him as a 5-star. He's not even close to a 5-star to me. He's a 4-star in the 10 to 12 range in this class. But how can you let this guy go? How could this be possible? You're a horrible coach. This is unacceptable. Florida is Florida. We should be getting the top kids. So now you got bad perception on both sides. They both walk away. Rashada looks like a headache. Napier looks like he can't get things done. Nobody wins. And it comes down to the fact that this didn't occur. It wasn't that, the offensive coordinator got fired or the quarterback's coach went to a different school. This was money, period. That's it. And the same with McLean, money. And it makes the kids look bad. It makes the perception of college football look bad. That's why I'm saying, the twins you're talking about played college. Now,
Right.
they
They did.
established a brand in college.
Right.
You could make an argument. Cormani McLean established his brand in high school because he's a 5-star. Rashada, the same thing. But to me, it's a complete different level of competition and play. Where if you make your earnings and your name and notoriety in college, and you want to transfer to another college, I have no problem with you essentially getting a great deal. I have a problem with the high school kids who haven't thrown a pass against a college player in their life getting all this money. It's just something's got to be done to fix this. And the genie's out of the bottle because Congress isn't going to get involved, and antitrust is there. You could sue the NCAA if they stop you from making money.
I'm curious on men's basketball. I don't know how much of an expert you are on men's basketball, but
No.
not at all. Okay. Because I'm curious on men's basketball. If now, obviously, it's a smaller market, other than a few schools. Like where I went to school, UConn, probably the guys who get most of the NAL are probably, I'm guessing, are basketball players, but not football players, or much more into basketball players. I wonder because basketball was like the first to establish these guys at 16 are probably going to be pro. They already know at 16, like here are 16 years old. These are the guys that are probably going to be pros. These 50 guys, these guys are probably going to be good college. Like they know early in basketball, and a lot of it has to do with height and shooting and things that are very tangible. Where football, I do think, has a lot more intangible parts. And my question is this: is there on the quarterback side specifically, not other positions, because a lot of other positions, a lot of things can change, like how fast you are and all. But quarterbacks, are you seeing like a pattern, like these guys at 16, you know what I'm saying? Like are more likely to be a pro than these other guys? Is that possible at quarterback?
Not yet.
Okay.
So in the last 10 years, there's been a few quarterbacks that I saw at the high school level that were as good as I've ever seen. One of them people are going to laugh at, and it's Josh Rosen. Okay. It was unbelievable. Multiple comeback victories for his high school. California had all the skills he wanted, but a little bit of an attitude issue. Goes to UCLA, average career, first round pick. And now he's been at 7 different teams because they decided to get Kyler Murray the next year and ship him off. The other is Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, number 1 pick, no brainer, playoff winner now. But I look at the class with Bryce Young and DJ Uiagalelei. Those two guys, one has pro size, the other does not. They were both great. We had Bryce Young number 2 in the country, Uiagalelei number 3. Bryce Young should be the number 1 pick in the draft, and Uiagalelei is on his second team trying to rehab his college. So there's no guarantee. Whereas if you could see, like you remember a guy named Nerlens Noel?
No.
You probably don't. So he was a big-time basketball prospect in Massachusetts. I don't know why I'm echoing. Hold on. Let me see. Still echoing. So annoying. So his 2 brothers were football players, and I just so happened to go up there to watch a football game, and he was playing. Ooh, that helped. What'd you do? Oh, now you're on mute.
I muted myself. Sometimes, I don't know, depending on the connection.
Yeah.
It's better if I mute it. I'll mute.
Okay, so you mute yourself, and I'll just yap. So Nerlens Noel was his 2 brothers both played college football. One at Maryland, one at BC. Jimmy Noel, he's a scout now in the NFL, and is Rodman Noel, who's a player at Maryland. And I went up and saw this kid. He looked like a pterodactyl. He was in a football uniform. He was a freshman, 6'10", and I'm like, what the heck is he? Oh, that's the youngest brother. I'm like, he can't play football. He's 6'10". His arms, he's got a wingspan of like 90 inches. They said, nah, he's playing football here, but he's going to be a basketball player. He's like the top pick in the draft, but he's only a freshman in high school. Because of his size and wingspan and his ability, he was done. He ended up being a top 5 pick in the draft for the 76ers. Busted out, made a ton of money though. but because of his wingspan and his height alone, he was going to be a first round top 10 lottery pick. You can't find that in college at a quarterback because there's too much between the ears for that. So that's my answer to that.
Yeah, that's interesting. The physical tools that someone has in basketball, other than shooting, if someone's a light, and even that's physical tools too. Guys who are lights out shooters, you have a percentage of how what they shoot 3-pointers, right? If they're shooting in high school 60% in 3-pointers, that's probably going to be a guy that's going to go very high eventually. So, because he's always going to stay in the 40-50% range, even as he move up. So it's that is interesting. I wonder though over time, just because of like I'm starting to see like even you're right, Josh Rosen was by all accounts, would be a first round bust, but he still went in the first round, right? Same thing with obviously he's successful so far. Trevor Lawrence went in the first round. My thing is if they're like when back in the day, tag the guy a 5-star, one of the top guys, if he had the right height and size already. There are guys like Kyler Murray that still had to go through the process, even though he had the ability. But at his height, you still were going to figure it out a long way. But a guy who had the right height and size, if you in high school say, hey, this guy is a potential first rounder, and he goes, and even if he has a modest college career, my guess is the pros are still going to say, well, if he was great, he would be an early first round. All right, I'll take him at 23, in the first round, right? Like a low risk. Usually someone takes him at 23, 24, 25. Like when Tim Tebow went, they're thinking if he's good enough, we could groom him. If not, he washes out. No big deal. We already have a quarterback because we're the 25th pick. We're one of the better teams, so we already have a guy. So I feel like it's a low risk once someone gets rated high and has the measurables. Even if he has an average college career at Division I, it's a low risk to waste a pick on him in the late first round.
Mm.
Is it, or am I wrong?
Well, there's different theories about that for
Hmm.
sure, and I'm not echoing, which is awesome. So you've got your guys because I was thinking of guys, that fit that criteria, and Uwanga would be one. I don't think he'd be late first rounder, but Spencer Rattler popped into mind, and he had 18 touchdowns, 12 picks last season. Coming back to South Carolina, we'll see how he does this season, but he was a guy who had a first round tag, 5-star out of high school, and wouldn't sniff the first round right now, and probably would be drafted middle of the draft,
But
fifth
he's
round.
not the right height and size, though.
He's 6'4".
Is Spencer Rattler 6'4"?
Yeah,
Oh, he
skinny,
is. Oh, I
skinny,
didn't realize
but
that.
tall.
I didn't
Yeah,
realize
no,
that. Okay.
he's not a small kid. I mean, he's gangly, but no, he didn't have any of the size knocks or anything like that. And then I'm trying, think of some of these other guys like you remember Gunnar Kiel? Horrible career. Ended up at Cincinnati. I don't even think he got drafted. The NFL is much more. It's other positions. I think you can think it can work. Late first round picks. If you see some of them, like Lamar Jackson, of course, won a Heisman. He was a late round flyer for the Ravens. They traded back into the first round to get him. Took a shot that he could play quarterback. Kind of worked out. But there's other guys like at the end of round one, the kid from Osweiler or whatever his name was.
Osweiler. Yeah, Osweiler.
Osweiler. And then there was another kid from Memphis who was taken late in the first round.
Yeah.
Good kid.
Went
I
to
can't
Denver.
remember it. And he busted out.
Yep.
So sometimes it depends. It's usually the quarterback needy teams that are taking him in the second round, in late first round. If you need one, it's those third rounders. Like we got a guy, and the Packers are the exception. I mean, when they had Aaron Rodgers, they drafted Jordan Love late first round. I don't understand why they did that or what they were thinking, but it's those third round guys. You will get a bump based on your ranking out of high school, but it's more performance based. Like I don't know where Nerlens Noel went to college. I think it might have been Kentucky. I think he played 1 year. I think he was average. Didn't matter. Like I said, he grew up to be like 7'1", and the worst case scenario for him is he's going to be a shot blocker at worst, But if he turns out to have any sort of offense ability whatsoever, that's where you can project. I was just at the Hoop Hall tournament last night in Springfield. It's the biggest, all the best players and teams in the country. And I'm looking at guys who are ranked number 1 and number 2. And I just went because my buddy works at Springfield College. But I can see these guys, and they're seniors, or some of them are juniors in high school, and they're projected one and done, and they will be one and done. Doesn't matter how great they are, how good they are, how they transition. They're just going to be one and done. That's how it works in basketball because, as you mentioned, it's physical, tangible. A guy shoots threes, he shoots threes. Guy rebounds, blocks shots, scoring a paint, dunks, whatever. There's not a lot of can he handle the speed of the game because basketball is much, much more different than football. There's only so many things you're going to see on a basketball court. Whereas football, if you're a quarterback, you got to know if it's a safety blitz. You got to know if it's a 2-deep zone. You got to know where you're getting man. You got to look the safety over to try to get to your man-on-man situation here. There's so much thinking involved with football. I think that's why they really kind of are they scrutinize quarterbacks. And then they take a Will Levis. And listen, maybe he's going to be great. I don't know. But there's no reason for anybody to be looking at him as the number 1 pick. And now there's talk of teams trading up to get that, with the Bears to get the number 1 pick and taking Will Levis. And so sometimes it's like you got to look at what they've done and how smart they are and how they see the field and how they play on the field. Because you got 3 years too. Remember, in NBA, world and college football, college basketball is 1 and out. So you don't really get a full evaluation of how they, move from 1 year to the next year to the next year. But then a guy's arm will throw all that away. So I think it's more the rating, Anthony Morelli, Kyle Wright. I can think of all these guys that were surefire, absolute 5-star, going to be superstars in college and just stunk. And they never got drafted. So it happens more often in football.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that I don't know if I think, but I wonder if as the evaluations get some sort of better information, meaning like there's so much information right now as opposed to when you first started, you were probably literally, I'm guessing, watching the film. Each one of these potential 5-star guys have to kind of figure it out on your own with making your own parameters, right? You probably made your own parameters. There probably were parameters when you first started, right?
I don't know how tall he was. I was watching him on VHS film. He's listed 5'11". I'm going to assume he's 5'11". He could be 5'9".
Right.
There were one camp as the Nike camps. Pre 2001, we didn't get to see kids at all. 2002. There was no Army All-American game. There was no in-person evaluation ability. It was all like, this kid looks great on film. I'm going to go based on what he says he is as far as height and weight, and then I'll listen to his coach. And it was all highlight films and game films, and yeah, we were guessing.
That's what I find so interesting, that they're definitely, like, you guys are probably originals that put parameters on it, and there keeps getting to be more and more parameters. I wonder. I think you're right. I guess there's a limitation with quarterback because of the way football is. You could get all the parameters you want. They're still between the ears that you're never going to be able to, unless they figure out some sort of scientific way of figuring that out.
Look at Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Wilson and the Jets. Number 2 pick. It's 2 years. They want him gone. They told him to go read a book. He wasn't even dressed half the season at the end of the season.
Which I thought was, by the way, a mistake. I see, I have my opinions on it, just having to watch a lot of Jets games, obviously. I watched Zach Wilson, and there were times that I thought if they just let him make the mistakes without, like, hammering him for every mistake and didn't have a quote-unquote defensive head coach, okay, as the head coach, let's say it's Shanahan as your coach, right? I mean, he's going to let you make more mistakes before he throws you away. than a defensive coach whose mindset is very logical orientated and like, if this and this and this, I'm going to do this to stop a team. Like they see a guy like Zach Wilson and get very frustrated because you can't talk to a quarterback the same way that you communicate with your defensive end, or your outside linebacker. Like, and Zach Wilson, each quarterback's different, right? Kyler Murray, completely different personality than Zach Wilson, completely different personality than a Peyton Manning, completely different personality than Tom Brady. Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, two of the best of all time, 1 and 2, in my opinion. 1 being Tom Brady, 2 being Peyton Manning. 1 and 2 at quarterback position. If you put both of them in a room, they're two completely different human beings.
Right.
Like how they approach things. So I think Zach Wilson's a great example of, there's no way he would succeed with that style of coach. Not that the Jets coach may be a great coach. I thought it was a mistake. I think he's definitely the wrong person for him. He may go to somewhere else. Like I always look at up the guy from Seattle. I don't think he's that great, but he got around Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll trusted Geno Smith a little more. Geno Smith performed the best he's ever performed. He's been in the league for 10 years now.
Yeah,
Finally performing what they thought a second round guy could do, right? It took 10 years to get to that point. And I agree with you. I think that's you could get all these parameters, get everything set. You have like Josh Rosen, Trevor, they line all these things up, Spencer Rattler, and then between the ears, how me as a coach handles this player in a certain way will totally dictate whether he succeeds or not in some cases. There are very few Peyton Mannings that whoever you put near him, he's probably going to have a really good chance to succeed. But let's look at Tom Brady. If what's his name didn't get hurt, the quarterback, he was great too. Bledsoe doesn't get hurt and plays another 5 years and he wins that Super Bowl. Does Tom Brady even ever get the opportunity to be?
And
Tom
Brady was a 6th rounder.
Right, he's a 6th rounder.
Whereas Peyton Manning was number 1 overall. So, yeah, it's hard. Like, there's never going to be a perfect science. And basketball, listen, I mean, there's no perfect science for basketball. Noel busted out. Ben Simmons has been a nightmare. And, Greg Oden had injury issues. There's just always issues. You're never going to get it 100% right. I don't know how Zach Wilson gets to number 2. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I think it's people trying to be smarter than they are. I think with Will Levis, people trying to be smarter than they are. Like you always want to. It's boring for every draft analyst to say, "Well, my number 1 guy is Bryce Young, my number 2 guy is C.J. Stroud." Somebody wants to be the smart one. Somebody wants to be the genius. Chris Sims, he's the one who came out about Zach Wilson and said he's the best quarterback I've ever seen. Blah 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 blah, and people bought into it. And that can change your perception as a GM, as a scout, because we all know NFL is a corporation, and every corporation I've ever worked for, there's smart people on the front lines, and then there's middle management, and then there's idiots at the top. And the idiots at the top come in and say, "Well, I heard about this Zach Wilson guy. I heard a lot of special things about him from some people that I know," and then all of a sudden he's the boss. Right, so you gotta let me put Zach Wilson on our draft board here. He doesn't belong here, but let me put him up here. And then it gets a life of itself.
Catches fire.
Those guys are trying to keep their jobs, and they're trying to please the idiot, whoever it may be, whether it's the owner, whether it's the GM or the VP or whatever. And they're like, okay, Zach Wilson would never be on our board ever, but the bigwig says he heard something, and it could have been some stupid party he was at where some other bigwig idiot mentioned Zach Wilson. It comes from nothing, but you got to play into that now. And then all of a sudden you find yourself lost in 2 months later, and you're taking the kid number 2 overall. And you're like, what the hell just happened? Why did we do this? And Saleh, to your point, is a good coach. He's a defensive coach. And when you stink so bad, and the media asks you, do you have anything, do you feel any sort of responsibility to the defense that kept you in that game the entire time? When you went, 10 of 31 with 3 picks, and you say, no, you're done. Defensive guy ain't going to play that. He's going to say, well, you know what? Okay, you little brat. You're sitting, and that's what ended his career.
Right.
That one interview ended his career with the Jets, and he never came back from it. But that's how a bad pick can be made. You know, there's just never going to be a formula. Again, we talked about this, what was it, last week? People could have called me about Baker Mayfield. They could have called me about Kyler Murray. They called me about the quarterbacks this year. There aren't really any troublemakers, brats. Anthony Richardson is the salt of the earth type of dude in Florida. He's not a first round talent. I would tell anybody that. Will Levis, nice guy, eccentric, Connecticut kid. I mean, geez, I love Connecticut. Not a first round talent. Bryce Young, great kid. CJ Stroud, less of a great kid than Bryce Young, but still good enough. Nobody I would say anything bad about. But the information is there for you. Sometimes you just don't listen to it. Zach Wilson's information was there.
That's very interesting. I didn't know that. That's very interesting. It's the quarterback position so makes and breaks everything. Like when you watch these playoffs, I mean, like even guys who you don't expect to be that. Like for example, Miami, right? What's the guy's name who took his? I never even heard of him. The guy who took his.
Tyler Thompson, 4-star kid from the Midwest, went to Kansas State. Limited talent-wise.
Played great in that game at times.
Well, and again, 4-star talent, had an okay career at Kansas State, got hurt a bunch of times, fought through it, third-string quarterback, and there's a reason you can see why he's a third-string quarterback, because the clock in his head isn't there.
Right, it's not moving.
He sometimes rushes the pass, sometimes doesn't see things as quickly as other people do. That's all mental. He can throw the ball. He's probably got a stronger arm than Tua.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have that rhythm. He doesn't have that quick vision, decision making. But he did play well. Josh Allen did not play well. Trevor Lawrence threw 4 picks in the first half and then caught fire.
Caught fire.
You know, and Herbert.
Well, that's my point with like a Peterson, right? Obviously Trevor Lawrence is a little different. He's gigantic. He's all these other things too. That you're going to give him more chances than a Zach Wilson per se. But an offensive coach handling Zach, I mean,
Lawrence. Yeah,
Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence. Handling him was patient with the fact they threw 4 picks. Like 90% of the coaches, any defensive coach in the NFL would have thought about it at halftime making a move, just to save the game. Now I'm not talking about the season or a career, just to try to save the game and move to the next round. They would have thought of. But Peterson's patience, I mean, you know, I thought he was fantastic, by the way, with the Eagles. I thought he got a raw deal there. But the patience he has, obviously Peterson was a quarterback, right? So there is an interesting thing with, you know, obviously quarterbacks do seem to have a high level of potential success in the NFL if they have the other stuff as a coach because they know how to handle the most important position, really. They know how to handle the quarterback and the nuances of those guys where they could be eccentrics, they could be tremendous team guys, sometimes they could be selfish guys. Like people think of quarterback and they think that like people automatically think that the quarterback is this non-selfish point guard guy. And it's actually not true. Their success is in the fact that they have a level of self-interest, right? If they didn't have a level of self-interest, they wouldn't be so interested in forcing these other guys to be successful too. Like Tom Brady to me sticks out as because you can't use Peyton Manning as the way because Peyton Manning is a certain way. He's tough on the guys, but most of the time you won't see Tom Brady. You'll see him explode on guys, and it's a level of self-interest that Tom Brady shows, team-oriented in his own way, but a level of self-interest that he needs you to do this stuff right now, and people have this perception that QBs. I see it, you know, as a coach from high school, like. I'll see guys that'll put a guy in place that, he can hand the ball off or throw a. I'm like, no, you want a guy that wants to win, And sometimes he's a point guard like Iverson, and sometimes he's a point guard. One of my favorite guys of all time used to play for North Carolina, King Rice. All he did is pass. Okay. And sometimes like King Rice, and he just wants to distribute the ball, and he'll score 2 points a game with 15 assists, right? And they're different guys, but they do it for their own reasons too. King Rice was doing it because not only he was a good team guy, but you know what? He was the best passer in college basketball at the time, and he was almost doing it to a detriment, meaning like he'd pass up shots because he wanted to show you how good a passer he was, right? So a quarterback is like that, and I think people make the mistake of saying, "Hey, this guy has to be like." Oh my God, he's arguing with Cliff Kingsbury. Do I think Kyler Murray's a baby at times? Yeah, absolutely. But I'm not mad that he's arguing with Cliff Kingsbury. I'm mad with is it to win the game or is it because he's being a baby? That's is he self interested because he's trying to win the game or is he self interested because he's mad that Cliff Kingsbury's mad at him? You know what I mean?
Well, that's the tough part. Like with a Zach Wilson and with a Kyler Murray, uh, are they upset because they're losing, or are they upset because they're blaming other people for their own shortcomings? And the answer to both those questions for those two guys is that they're blaming other people, and they both had that reputation of doing so, not only out of college but out of high school as well. And I thought of when Trevor Lawrence threw 4 picks. I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, what do you do here? He's your number one pick overall. He's in his second season. Um, sometimes you think about pulling, like in hockey, you pull a goalie when it's like 7-0 and he just doesn't have it. You pull it so the goalie doesn't get embarrassed. Um, I remember Patrick Roy with the Montreal Canadiens ended up leaving for the Colorado Avalanche because he wasn't pulled, because he had a bad night. His defense was horrible. He gave up like, I don't know, 10 goals. And he was so pissed that the coach didn't pull him after like 6 that he felt it was an embarrassment. He felt he was being left out there to embarrass himself. And he left a franchise in Roy, Montreal, French Canadian, like perfect fit. He left because of that particular reason. So I'm thinking with Trevor Lawrence, I'm like, okay, you do one of two things. You bench him and you kind of give up on the game because you're not going to come back with your backup quarterback. I don't even know who the backup is, um, but do you do it to save him? Because if 4 picks turns into 6, and all of a sudden he's living with that for the rest of his, off season. But you look at the personality of the person, and knowing Trevor Lawrence just a little bit, I know the thing to do there. First of all, he's never going to blame anybody else. You never saw him pointing fingers when he threw picks. Some of those were, bad routes. Some of those were things that he did wrong. He tried to force the ball in. Some of them were possible penalties that weren't called. He didn't blame anybody else. Just shook his head. He's like, and he just got back and he focused on his, iPad or whatever. That guy's personality is you leave him in, and first of all, you have confidence he's not going to throw a 5th pick or a 6th pick or a 7th pick. But if he does, he's going to rebound from it. You bench him, that's not going to kill his confidence, but it's going to kill his confidence in you as a coach because he's such a competitor. So I thought of that, and I'm like, they can't bench him. This is embarrassing. 4 picks in the first, whatever, like, I don't know, 35 minutes. I mean, the first 25 minutes of the game. But they stuck with him, and they ended up winning the game. It didn't surprise me that they won the game because that's who he is. He's just a great competitor and quarterback, and he gets angry. In that national title game or the semifinal game against Ohio State, he got drilled. Remember? Got drilled by Ohio State. They ended up calling a penalty. It changed the game, but he was pissed. And after that, he ran the ball. He ran for like 75 yards and a couple touchdowns.
That, yeah.
He was angry. And I could see a little bit of the anger coming through in that second quarter. So I'm like, but Zach Wilson, you pull him after 4 picks to save himself because he's a baby, petulant. 4 is going to turn into 8 because he's going to just try to like throw. You ever play a sport? When I was a kid, and I still do this to some extent. Like if I was playing a sport and I was sucking at it, I would self-sabotage suck more because I felt so bad for myself. And I felt like a sorry little loser. So if I struck out like 3 times in a baseball game and my dad would be like, you got to focus, I would go up the 4th time and I feel sorry for myself, be all victim-y, big pouty little brat, and I go up there and I just strike out on purpose because what's for? And that's just such a self-defeating attitude, but that's also being a 10-year-old in Little League. But that's how these guys are. Zach Wilson would have thrown a fifth pick and a sixth pick and a seventh pick, and then he would have blamed everybody else. Trevor Lawrence didn't throw the fifth pick and came back and had the ability to throw 4 more touchdowns and win the game. Different human beings. Now, one was the number 1 pick in the draft 2 years ago. The other one was the number 2 pick in the draft 3 years ago. 1 pick difference. Completely different human beings. And if you do your research, you knew what I just told you about Trevor Lawrence, and you knew what I just told you about Zach Wilson. And you should know this stuff if you're making multi-million-dollar decisions, and somehow the NFL can blow that. I don't understand
That's
that.
a great. You just made probably the most important point. If you're going to draft whatever guy you draft for whatever reason you're drafting him, you need to know what his personality profile is and how he's going to react in certain situations to build that good case study and know because the coach has to know that because he's got to make decisions on the field based off of what his performance or non-performance is, whether he leaves the guy in or what he doesn't, whether he saves him from himself or he doesn't, right? Like, and to, in order to get the most out of him. But I think you're right. I bet to me they build these personality profiles on them, but they're afraid. They're not going to put out like, listen, you take this guy, he's great. But if things go wrong and he's being a big baby, you need to pull him and put somebody else in. And then the next week, you work with him again, get him on the right track. He might be great for the next 7 weeks. You're going to have to deal with that if you take him. If you take this guy like Trevor Lawrence, he's more of a perfect scenario. He does bad. He'll get angry and want to do good, right? And he's going to figure out how to do good because he's going to be like the seventh time he's at bat, I'm hitting a home run. Even though I struck out 6 times, number 7's a home run, right? That's his mindset, right?
Uh-huh.
And Brady's like that, I think, too. Like I've seen Brady get sacked 90 times, throw a million bad passes, all of a sudden, fourth quarter comes back, right? Like it's like, wait a minute, who is this human being? How could he do this after playing so terrible the whole entire game? It's like most people cannot handle that mentally, playing terrible the whole entire. It's funny because I see this with you see this at kids at the youngest level because my kid's 7 years old. I see some kids who things aren't going well and they will just keep fighting through it. And then
Yeah.
you see some kids, things aren't going well, and you're better off just having a long talk with them on the bench and saying, hey, take 2 minutes, sit here, we'll put you in a little bit later, once you gather yourself. It's very interesting because I feel like their personalities can change a little bit over time, but you're really adapting to their unique personality style, not the other way around. You know what I mean? Because people are probably set. Like you were set, I was set. By the time we were 18, how we handled things was kind of how we handled it. We can improve a little one way or the other, but our kind of formulation is a certain way. So the coach almost has to, if you're taking me on your team, you have to know this is how he is. So you have to have someone that handles that, I guess. I don't know. It's very interesting.
You can't change him psychologically at that age. Like your kid's 7 right now, his brain is formulating, and his willingness to either fight or victim is being formed right now. So he could be that kid that I'm talking about, like when I was 10 years old, as an example, who would, if you struck out 3 times, and this never happened to me that I can remember as a kid, but I have foggy memories of my childhood because it wasn't so great. But recently on the golf course, I can come up with these reminders of myself as a young kid. When on the golf course, if I'm not hitting the ball well and I'm sucking and I'm 3 holes in, for me to dial it in and get better, it's not going to happen. I'm going to be so upset. I'm going to be so pissed. I'm going to be so down on myself that I'm just going to keep slapping the ball around, and I'm not going to focus. I'm not going to, stand over the shot. I'm not going to visualize the shot. I'm not going to stay in form. I'm not going to stay down. I know I'm just going to be crap. because I don't have mental toughness. I have mental toughness in certain areas,
Right.
but not in golf. And
Right.
you have to have that in sports. And it's a sixth sense, honestly. I spent very, very, very little time around Zach Wilson, like maybe one camp.
Right.
And Trevor Lawrence more so because he was the number one player in the country and all that, but maybe 5, 6 camps. But it's sixth sense. I can tell you, interviewing a kid and talking to maybe 2 or 3 other people, whether a kid's a turd and a brat or he's a stand-up football player. I can tell, I can tell based on how they talk.
Like Tom Brady is a brat but angry with a chip on his shoulder. Isn't that it was one of the most interesting, I think,
I don't think he's a brat.
psychological
I think he's a cocky son
cocky?
of a bitch. I
Okay,
think
there you
he's
go.
the cockiest, like a
He's
brat to
angry
me.
though. He's
Yeah,
angry,
but he's demanding excellence. Like
demanding. Yes.
Kyler Murray's angry and pointing fingers at everybody else. That was a bad call. You should have caught that pass. He's a baby.
Mm.
Brady's demanding of himself and other people, and he
Yep.
gets pissed like you ran the wrong route. That's on you. But he will also. He doesn't always. He'll say, "I made a crappy throw. I didn't play well enough." Like there's a balance there. And some of these guys, like, when's the last time you heard Zach Wilson come out and say, like, I played like crap, I let my team down, or Kyler Murray say, I played like crap? But they can't. They don't have that function in their narcissistic little spoiled brains to take responsibility upon themselves, whereas
Right.
Brady has that. And I don't know. I mean, you can't. Brady's like. So Dak Prescott's a great example. You're a Cowboy fan. Dak Prescott's this annoying person, right? You don't want to be. And I know all the, his teammates, Ezekiel Elliott, CeeDee Lamb will all say, well, you don't know what you're talking about, right? You're not his teammate. And we love Dak. We kill for Dak, right? Dak Prescott, in one evaluation from me psychologically, is an annoying, rah-rah front runner. And by front runner, I mean, if things are going great, he's great. If things are going bad, he's still positive and great, but to an annoying level. He could throw 2 pick sixes, and he'll be that guy on the sideline clapping at everybody, saying, let's go, guys. And the guys will be like, listen, we're down 14-0 already in the first quarter because you suck. I don't want to hear your rah-rah crap. I want to hear you say, on me, I suck. I screwed that up. Not going to happen. I need you guys to bail me out. And that's what Russell Wilson is too. They're both like rah-rah phony babies. And nobody respects that. And that's why,
Mm.
Dak's not going to win, because his team is rolling their eyes when he makes a dumb interception and he's like, "Oh, come on, let's fight through it." No, you fight through it. I'm Micah Parsons, man. I'm trying to kill the quarterback. I'm trying to keep us in this game. We're down 14-0 because you two pick sixes. You're making my job harder. I don't want to hear rah-rah. I want to hear some sort of, at least responsibility on your part that says, hey, guys, defense, man, you guys are playing really well. It's my fault. I need you to bail me out. People respond to that better. And that's the kind of guy I want as quarterback. That's why I don't want Dak.
Very interesting. And I think the quarterback position, it's like quarterback and kicker, right? Or this it's the same the with the dads, okay? The kicker, you see it with little kicking camps. Now I listen, guys like Sailor deserve a ton of credit. They created industry from literally nothing. It's mind blowing how they did it. But the consequence and QB training thing is similar. It's kind of the same path, right? In a different way, but same path where they created these industries, and it's created also certain individuals because um, parents all see this skill set, quarterback and kicking, as a unique skill set that, if honed, you don't have to jump 40 inches, okay, out of the gym and dunk it like a DB has to be able to, or, a wide receiver. Like, you don't have to have these. Some of them do have these amazing skill sets, but you don't have to have those skill sets. So everyone throws them into all this training and takes every person. And like, I've seen it, and I've seen it in like tryouts. I'll see this kid; he can throw the ball really good, right? Like 7-on-7 stuff. Blake, he's like chubby. And I'm like, well, how's he going to be like, I know you're paying all this money for like, where is he going to play quarterback as a chubby quarterback, unless he gets perfect blocking
Right.
all the
You can't
time?
move.
Who cares if he's got a cannon? I mean, there's only been one hefty lefty in the world, and that guy was the most unique individual of all time, Jared Lorenzen, right? I mean, there's not too many of Jared Lorenzens coming around in the history of the world. And somehow Jared Lorenzen, 300 pounds, could run a 4.8, right? It doesn't happen.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. But like I see these kind of things, and I just see it's a product of the kicking and QB training culture where dads go and say, you know what? Even though I was an offensive lineman in Division One, my son's going to be a QB with my offensive lineman genes. Like it's just, I don't know. Like it's very interesting, and I think it's created the good and the bad of the quarterback position. Just like kicker, like these kickers can kick farther than they've ever kicked before, but not until they get put into tough situations do you even know if they're any good. They can all kick 50-yarders. You could go to every one of these videos you see these kickers like these guys put out on, and they all can boot it, right? And I see all these like strange body types kicking 50-yarders, and it's like, well, until they're in front of, in high school, 5,000 people kicking in a championship game, I have no idea if they're any good, if they can make it. And when they get to college, until they kick in front of 80,000 and have to make a 50-yarder with the game on the line, I have no idea if they're any good. Because the guys in the NFL that are really good, the standout 5 or 6 kickers in the NFL, those guys make game-winning field goals every single week. And I feel like that you're seeing that now in the quarterback position, that gap. Like a Trevor Lawrence can figure it out. Obviously, a Tom Brady can. There are guys that are figuring it out week in and week out. And then there's the other guys. They're still in the NFL, just like some of these kickers are, but they become journeymen because they can't make a game-winning field goal from 50 yards no matter what happens.
Yeah, the psychology of football is a lot different. And I guess, basketball, you could say free throw shooting and stuff like that, but it's not the same. I mean, I don't know how to pick the perfect quarterback. I mean, I thought Mahomes was going to be, a flyer pick. He shouldn't have been taken that high, and now he's amazing. So even I don't know at all, and I've been doing this for 25 years. Gil Brandt's been doing it for 50 years. He doesn't know. Nobody knows. You got to do as much research as possible. Talk to people, get a feel for kids, have a sixth sense, and then maybe you'll get lucky and get those guys. But we've done an hour. We haven't even promoted the promo.
Well, I've been promoted down low at least.
All right, good. That's my fault because I jumped into this. So, again, we're talking about 5-star quarterbacks. We're talking about first-round NFL picks. Those are less than 1% of the world. If you're a kid who needs promotion, who's a high school football player, you're not getting enough recruiting attention. And I've been talking to a bunch of kids through DM, and, they're hesitant. It's the way to move your recruiting forward. And I tell people, I was talking to a parent the other night, and he goes, do people usually do the one-time $200 one? I go, that's the one that's least effective. It's the cheapest. I go, with this, if you're a prospect, you need repetition. You need people to see your name out there over and over and over again so it can start to sink into people that this is a kid I want to take a look at. They may not even look at your first 2 and then catch on your third because, like, okay, who's this kid I keep hearing about? So we've got that. The portal one is interesting to me. It happened so fast. This was the first time with the window. So when I proposed the portal, can you mute yourself because I'm echoing?
Yeah.
So when I proposed to you the portal, I'm like, okay, this could be a real good business opportunity. Blah blah blah. Portal kids need attention. Some of them are going to fall under the radar. I had experienced the portal with no window. It was 365 days a year. You could jump at the portal in August. You could jump at the portal in October. You could jump at the portal in May. And that I felt was a more balanced. What we're seeing with this portal now is the 45-day window is up. I think this week. It's up this week. So much is happening so fast that I think it's almost like kids get caught up in a whirlwind. Like the kids that are going to get offers, take multiple visits, they commit. We just had bunch of commitments yesterday, and we'll have a few more. And then the kids that are left out are just almost like spinning their wheels. They don't really know what to do. The window's closed now. Now you're not going to get another window till I think May. Now what do? You got 4 months. You're not going to be going to any camps. There's no portal camps. You're not going to have new film. You're just going to sit around and wait for a phone call. You got to find something that's going to give you that little extra edge. We've got McCray Mort, from Idaho. His video's got over 10,000 views now. I don't know who's been in contact with him. Carter Lynch from Cal. I talked to him the other day. He had some schools talk to him, and then they stopped talking to him. That's because they were focused on getting all these kids in committed. And now that the portal window will close, they'll start talking to him again. Nye Nanzel, the offensive lineman from Mercer, who I like a lot. I broke down his film, did his. Those are the kids that are going to start, that coaches are going to start paying attention to, and that has slowed down. It was a frenzy between early signing period, bowl preparation, bowl practice, and the portal opening. It was a nightmare for coaches. Now they can breathe. The football season is officially over. Georgia's a national champion. Recruiting is 90% done for the 2023 class. Coaches can breathe now, and they can actually watch film. And the only way to get your film in front of them, honestly, is through the promotion, so they can find a kid like Nye Nanzel, who I believe is a group of 5 player minimum, based on his ability as an interior guard with his feet, his ability to pull, all the things he does. But he wouldn't be looked at when the window opens. So I think our business for the portal is really after the 45-day window closes. Now is the time. I thought it was when it opened, but I've learned with this portal window for the first time, it's not when it opened, it's now.
That's really interesting. I feel like there's a lot of guys that are just completely left out, and there has to be a surge for those guys come the spring after this 45-day window. So you're right. You have to take advantage. For 3 months, you need to be out there. So when that new window opens, then you're the first person to be able to jump through it. Am I correct?
The kids that entered the portal at the beginning of the 45-day window, or even at the end of the 45-day window, that are left, there's no home for them, right? Now, most of the schools have had their early enrollments. Most of the kids that committed are on campus. They're going to go through spring football. Those guys that have entered the portal, that are in there now and don't have a home, that's the ones that need the promotion over the next 3 months. The guys who were thinking about jumping into the portal in the 15-day window at the end of spring football, they're probably going to see how spring goes. Right now they're running 3rd on the depth chart. They could finish 4th on the depth chart or stay 3rd, and they're not happy. Those are the guys that have to make their decision. That's the tricky part, because you only got 15 days to make that decision. I think our market is the kids right now after the 45-day window who don't have a home, who have the next 3.5 months to try to find a home. But when I first approached you about this, I was in the mindset of no window. So I was in a mindset that a kid could sign up for our promotion in September because he's in the portal. And we could take that time over the next few months to get him ready and promoted for the December decisions. But what's happened, December 5th, it opened, and it just became chaos. And there's honestly, it was going to be difficult for anybody to get attention there, because these coaches are overwhelmed. They're understaffed. They're overwhelmed. They don't know what to do. There's 2,000 kids jumping in a portal in a 45-day window, and they don't have the staff to really evaluate them. So what they're doing is they're looking for the kids they've heard of before, the kids that they know before, the kids that have come from schools and had success, or that were 5-star kids out of high school. They're not looking for the D2 kids. They're not looking for the 9 Nanzels that they've never heard of at Mercer. They didn't have time for that now. Now they do. Now there's time. And I think that's going to help the guys because our promotion isn't time-based for the portal. It's not based on a one-timer. It's not based on a 3-month. It's not based on a 6-month. We're going to keep promoting you and going further. So now it's like you're in the program. Now you're going to start to see a little bit of traction because everything's slowed down to the point where the highway's not going 90 miles an hour anymore. It's like, okay, it's a solid 55. Everybody can sort of stay in their lane and see what's happening now. So I think that's where we're going to start to see some results.
That's really interesting. The transfer thing is very obviously with the regular D1 promotion, we're seeing great results. With the high school kids, we're seeing fantastic results because their game is a difficult game just to stand out from anybody at all. Because high school, because of the transfer portal, you really need other ways to stand out. So our high school thing is really done well because those kids, we're putting them out there, and being out there, if you're are good enough, is going to make a big difference because those coaches see it and they're filtering through so many more. The transfer portal, I really think you're right in the sense that they're going to need this promotion in what would really be the off time more than the on time, because the on time is the frenzy, the feeding frenzy. The off time is the time that they're now re-looking at everything and have time to figure things out. Great point.
I didn't know how bad it would be, though. I had no idea. I had
Yeah.
no idea how bad it was going to be because it's the first time for a window.
Yeah.
And I tell you, the window was unmanageable, and they'll probably change it again.
Yeah.
You know, because it was unmanageable. But right now, everything's a learning process. With the recruiting, at least we know the calendar. Portal calendar changes all the time. So, you know, jump on the portal plan now. You got 3 months of inactivity where you can make a name for yourself. And the promo, anytime. We just got a 2027 kid. You know, we've got 2026 kids. We've got 2024 kids. We've got a good blend where we can take the time. And the results, honestly, have been kind of miraculous to me. You know, when you got guys who had nobody looking at them whatsoever, and they're going to end up at a group of 5 or Power 5 schools, that to me is absolutely insane because we had no time to do it. So the results have been really good. But, you know, that's the thing is like everybody wants everything free in this world. And I get that, you know. And when people, you know, say, well, you're going to charge me? I'm like, well, yeah, sorry. It's my time. You know, I don't work for free. You know, I got colleges who would pay me pretty good money to be consultants. I'm not going to do it for free. You have to pay for what is worthwhile in this world sometimes. And I think this is worthwhile. So 1 hour and 13 minutes, very verbose, very long. No one's going to listen to this part. That's the problem. The promo, I should have done it up front. I always do it up front. Today I got excited.
I'll cut this one.
All right. Well, we talked about the freaking Cowboys to start, and that got me going, and it got me into crappy quarterbacks.
Well, the funny part is, you know what everybody – well, the general person who – you know, people who log in and watch this because it's live in a bunch of different places, and I've looked at the numbers on it. The general person, just from watching the live, because of the playoffs are big right now, everybody was logged on during when we were talking about the Cowboys.
Yeah, and then you switch to NIL, and they're like,
they're gone. See you later.
I'm out. Well, anyways, the Cowboys are 2.5-point favorites tonight in Tampa. I don't bet on my team or against my team, but if you want to make money, take Tampa plus 2.5.
You were right on. By the way, the national, which we really didn't talk about much after, but the national.
Vegas knew.
When we said Vegas knew something, you're like, it's such a large amount, and they knew, dude. They won big there.
So bad. But this line is I can understand this line. You know, Cowboys a 13-win team, or 12-win team. They should be favored by 2.5. It's in Tampa Bay. I get it. Tampa Bay's stunk all season long, you know, but they beat the Cowboys early. So this line is acceptable. It's not like anything that Vegas knows anything. I just know if you're going to put a gun to my head and say you got to choose the Cowboys and Dak Prescott or the Buccaneers and Tom Brady, I know exactly what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to get shot in the head. I'm taking Tom Brady. And listen, as a Cowboy fan, I didn't
Yeah.
like Tony Romo. I don't like Dak Prescott. I'm not rooting against them. I'm going to be rooting for the Cowboys. But I just know they're not going to be able to
I'm
beat
so
Brady.
frustrated where the Cowboys keep getting over and over again a QB that is very good but cannot get them there. Like Tony Romo, by the way, maybe the best analyst.
Yeah, he's good.
He's good. But as far as a player, like you always felt like, wow, his numbers are great. Same thing with Dak, big numbers, big touch in the regular season, and we just can't get there. I pray that maybe Dak can get us there this year somehow. Some magic happens, but
We'll
if
see. I
not,
mean, the Bucks stink. They should beat them.
is this the curse of Troy Aikman? Basically, will go down as the great. We may not live to see another Cowboy championship. I feel like we're in a Danny White era, a perpetual Danny White. Remember Danny White? He
that
was
was my
good, but he
Danny White
couldn't
was
win it.
Danny White was my favorite player.
I loved him, but he could not win. He
Ever.
punted. He was a punter too. Remember?
Well, listen. Okay. Tony Dorsett fumbled against the Eagles. Everson Walls covered the back of the end zone against Dwight Clark. The Redskins game, I have nothing to say. They just got blitzed by the Redskins. But the three NFC Championships games he went to, he played well enough to win. It's just bad things happened. So Danny White will be perpetually listed as a loser, and following Roger Staubach, if you don't win Super Bowls, you're going to be a loser. Troy Aikman is the greatest quarterback to me to ever play for the Cowboys.
Yes,
and that includes Staubach. And yeah, we haven't got it right since. But this is what you deserve. It's what Jerry Jones deserves for not getting along with Jimmy Johnson, for hiring an idiot coach, Barry Switzer, who won a Super Bowl but had no business doing it, for pissing off, his quarterback, who didn't like Switzer at all. And that's what you get. You don't win since, what, 94? And that's the way life is. So we'll see. I mean, listen, I hope they win. I have my concerns just because it's Tom Brady. If this was against Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, I'd be like, we're gonna win. I mean, we beat them 40-something to 3 or something. Kirk Cousins sucks. It's Tom Brady though, man. It's Tom Brady. Tom Brady's different. He's built different, and Dak is an idiot. So we're not gonna win. That's it.
the Niners are the team that really looks.
How about that guy?
Brock Purdy.
Brock Purdy, man. And you want to talk about an offense, Iowa State's offense. I mean, Matt Campbell's such a conservative coach. That dude never got to do anything there. He was a serviceable quarterback, but their whole rock fight freaking, thing was to play defense in the Big 12 and try to win 20-13. And then you see these kids, obviously not slide in the draft, just barely get drafted, and now he looks like he's got the it factor. Like, he looks like he's got the it factor. And you're like, where was this in college? He was good, but not this good. Sometimes you get lucky. And I think they got lucky, Cowboys haven't got lucky. Yeah, Quincy Carter, Tony Romo, Dak Prescott. Someday, maybe we'll get lucky.
It's frustrating. It really is.
All right, let's get out of here.
Now I went from having a very enjoyable, and now it's going to be stuck in my brain until this game. That now I'm in I might not be in a great mood until if somehow we can pull the upset.
Wow.
Even though it's not an
upset. You're favored.
I know it's not an upset.
Cowboys are favored. They should win.
I know they're favored. The 13 wins, for God's sake. Tom Brady's won like 6 games, and we're going to lose to them.
Tom Brady has 35 playoff wins, I think. Dak has 1.
How many games did the Bucs even win this year? 7?
8 games. 1 was against the Cowboys. They won in the opener against the Cowboys, and they won 7 games since. Yeah.
All right. Have a great day.
See ya.
I'll see you later.